Well, Ray, it's so great to see you again and great to have you today. I know there's a lot of demands on your time, especially these days. So the fact that you take out some time with us shows your generosity, and I'm just grateful that you'd be willing to invest in some of our leaders here at Mission today.
Yeah, well, Joel, it's a pleasure to see you again. And Matt Hill, our men's tennis coach, one of your parishioners and friends, encouraged me and was enthusiastic about making the connection. And our old friend George Davis back in Atlanta,
that's right,
is where we first met.
Yep.
I'm sure he would be happy to know that we're having this chat as well. So, glad to be here, man.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to spring something on you. I sent you some questions, but I want to start with something fun, and it's because it's what the people want to know. And so I put some things on my phone. This is for you to confirm or deny. This little game called Confirm or Deny. Here's the first one. We will have college football in the Pac-12 this fall. Confirm or deny?
Pass.
Fair enough. But my answer wants to be confirmed, just so you know. I'm a huge college football fan.
How about this? We're working hard toward confirm. As you know, in this day and age, unfortunately, this thing called COVID-19 is the ultimate determiner. But we are working hard with some upgraded now daily testing capacity that hopefully will get us up and operating. So I want very much so to be able to confirm, but at this point, it would not behoove me to confirm per se.
Fair enough.
But I'm hopeful.
Larry Scott gave me a lot of hope the other day in his interview, so we'll see how that goes. All right, next one. Confirm or deny, the hiring of Herm Edwards was the best thing to happen to ASU football in a decade.
Confirm.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. That was a really nice hire. N'Keal Harry to shift to the NFL. N'Keal Harry, former ASU wide receiver, is going to have a breakout season in New England starting this weekend or next weekend with the Dolphins, regardless of who plays quarterback.
Confirm.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a great season as well. All right, the ASU men's basketball team will make a deep run into the 2021 NCAA tournament.
Confirm.
All right, I like it. You believe in your team. All right, the last one. This is probably going to be the hardest one. You mentioned our friend Matt Hill. That's a mutual friend of ours. If you were to walk out on the court today with Matt Hill, you would beat him in straight sets.
Seriously deny.
That was smart and strategic on your part. Thanks for being here. I want to do a quick intro because I know a lot of people. Everybody knows you're the ASU vice president and ASU director of men's athletics in general. But what a lot of people don't know is your background. And you have an amazing background. In fact, before we got on, we were chatting about some of the relationships you've had. One of the things, maybe for another day, that's super intriguing to me is the way you've been able to maintain quality relationships in all the places you've left. And you've continued those relationships, not just strategically, but because of the way you've conducted yourself. A lot of people don't know, you were a native of the Los Angeles area. You were a two-sport athlete at Stanford, got an undergraduate degree in political science, then went on to Harvard Law. After graduating Harvard Law, you built, operated, and sold both a law firm and then a sports agency, and then went to work for the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL at the club level, ultimately moving on to work in the NFL front office as a C-level executive in both of those roles. And while in a lot of those respects you were sort of behind the scenes a lot, you were making and a part of a lot of the front-facing decisions in those environments. And what's impressive to me is over and over and over, you've continued to maintain some quality relationships that have continued to propel you in your career, and now you're leading the athletic department for the largest university, as far as I understand, the largest university in America. And so I know that you haven't, you're not new. This COVID season, this pandemic season is not the first time you've faced difficulty. In fact, I believe you were in the NFL in '87 when the lockout was happening. Is that true?
Well, I was representing.
You're representing players. That's right. You were representing players.
Players when that occurred, and certainly was in the NFL when you had the players lockout in 2011 and the officials lockout in 2012. So I've been in some situations that were challenging.
So that leads me to my first question. My first question to you is, what are some key learnings or principles that you had learned in the past? Because I'll just tell you, Matt Hill has gone on and on and on about you. And I'm not just saying this for him or for your relationship. He's gone on and on about how impressed he's been with you. In fact, from his perspective, it's not only provided stability for ASU and the athletic department and the 300 plus employees that you have there, but it has sort of caused the university to emerge even more so as a leader in the Pac-12. And so I'm curious, what are some of the learnings and principles from past experiences that you carried into your leadership that have guided you in so far in 2020?
Well, Joel, first of all, thanks for the very generous introduction. The only correction I'll make on that introduction is that I sold an agency. I didn't sell a law firm. I left the law firm.
Oh, you left the law firm. Okay.
So that's the only correction.
Thank you for the correction. I'll make the note.
Yeah. Because I don't want any of my lawyer buddies that I've maintained friendships with all these years to claim that I sold their business out from under them and they didn't know about it. So,
there you go. Fair enough.
But in any event, thank you for the very kind introduction. The number one thing throughout it all is the ability and the insistence and the discipline to really communicate consistently and very candidly under all circumstances. And as a leader, if you're able to do that, you will, in my view, have a culture and a trust factor that is really high, whereby you can get some things done. And so from every place I've been, I've learned to communicate very consistently, very candidly. And part of communicating is really being a voracious listener, to absorb, to take in, to include folks in the discussion at whatever level they may be. Because at the end of the day, having a voice, we're all on the same level, whereby we all want to be heard. We all want to be, more importantly, listened to. So I think my biggest quality as a listener, as a leader that has put me in some position where I've been able to lead and been honored and privileged to lead, is because I believe in communication, consistent, candid, and then I do believe in listening to folks and taking that input into how we want to go forward.
That actually makes me think about a conversation I was having with Matt. He was telling me about one of the calls. You guys have a regular calls with all of your employees that are on there, and he said that you often allow others to lead the calls so that you can listen, so that you can sort of participate and pay attention. You're not having to facilitate the call, which I think is super brilliant as the leader. Most leaders want their voice to be heard. They want to be the one that's leading the call. So I think that shows your humility. But he told me about one specific instance in the midst of this COVID season when a really difficult question was asked about the future of employment and what's going to happen with your team. And some of your team were doing their best to address the question. And he said you jumped in. Can you tell us about that? Because that reminds me of the clarity thing, the clarity of communication. Can you tell us about why you jumped in and specifically sort of how you handled that situation?
Yes, I really believe that if you want to really judge the quality of a leader, just look at the folks with whom he or she has surrounded him or herself with as part of your senior management team. And so if you want to judge me as a leader, then I'm very comfortable in saying, look at my senior management team to whom we delegate authority and therefore having a voice. And so when we have meetings, it's important that those peer leaders are able to address the group overall and give their perspective on things. But then it's also very, very important when you have those sessions that if you get to any point in the meeting where the other folks talking, for whatever reason, aren't as clear as you'd like them to be, they aren't as maybe inviting folks to understand the details of the difficulties with which we're dealing. And maybe they want to fudge or make it a little softer in terms of what the impacts might be. Then I think it's important as the leader to jump in and say, let me give even more clarity.
Yeah.
Let me give even more hard facts and specifics with which we are dealing, so that you, our team, our workforce, our associates, our peers will know the breadth of the challenges. And I think it was one of those situations where sometimes delivering hard news or news that may concern some people is hard to do.
Yeah.
But there are situations where you've got to do it, so that folks can for themselves understand how they have to be able to deal, cope, be flexible, adapt. And being armed with the truth helps you do that, as opposed to not quite having it because someone didn't want to be quite as maybe harsh or forthright with the hard facts. In some cases, you just got to do that. And that's what Matt was alluding to.
Well, and that's exactly what he said to me. He said in the midst of a very uncertain situation, and Ray doesn't have a crystal ball. He doesn't know what's coming down the pipe in the future. He spoke the truth about what he did know. And he was very clear about what he did know and what his agenda was and what his goals were while there was uncertainty. And that provided, from his estimation, a fair amount of confidence within the organization. And not only confidence, but inspired people to want to rally around you and around the team in this season. Are there... I want to sort of zoom out a little bit. We kind of zoomed in on the COVID season. Are there any other general values or characteristics that you would say are core to who you are? You know, you talked about listening, but are there other values or characteristics of leadership that are core to who you are that sort of have transcended all of your roles in your different various roles in leadership throughout your career?
And some of it is akin to the communication piece of it, because that really is the core of my leadership, is communicating. And part of what you got to communicate and really drive home is that every single person in your organization, in your culture, plays an important role toward the outcomes. So, for instance, in Sun Devil Athletics, you may be the most junior, brand new groundskeeper on the soccer fields, or you may be a senior administrator making some of the most intense and competitive schedules. Those are equally important to the outcome that we seek, which is success across the board. So what we really communicate is everyone's role is important to us being a winning elite organization. And so the third most young groundskeeper has to believe that he or she really does impact our organization, makes a difference toward the level of our success, just like the chief financial officer or the folks responsible for scheduling the best men's basketball schedule that we've ever had for the last couple years. And so that thought that everyone really has an ownership or an equity interest in our success, that you're just not perceived as an hourly punching the clock employee who can be replaceable in a whim. We want a culture, and that really drives home and has people understanding and believing, because it's true, that their position is really important to our outcomes. Because if that third groundskeeper is sloppy and there's wet spots or patches on the corner of the soccer field, and one of our student athletes or one of our opponents slips and twists a knee or sprains an ankle because we have not done the job that we were supposed to do in taking care of that field, you're a soccer player, you know how important it is to have good pitches. If they have faltered in their job and we lose one of our student athletes, or one of our opponents lose one of their student athletes while competing on our sloppy field, that's an indication of what we're either are or are not. So that third groundskeeper is really important to everything we do.
So give
and
me,
we try to communicate that.
yeah,
and
I was
our
going to say,
people,
give me one or two examples of how you communicate that throughout the organization. It's a large organization. You got lots of employees, and you don't probably speak to that third groundskeeper on a regular basis. So how do you do that?
we call it out. It's the responsibility for our head coaches and our personnel in that soccer program, the administrators, the personnel people who, the head coaches, the assistant coaches who are running that program, to call out those exceptional performances, call out those folks. And then we have basic employee groups, if you will, who are in tune with being able to call out the work and the accomplishments that are worth our celebration on a broader scale. And you just put together kind of a culture of celebration, and people bring forth those things so that those things don't go unnoticed nor unrewarded.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, that's powerful. That's a powerful principle. Seeing it as a part of my role as a leader to call out the exceptional performance of people on my team and being held accountable for that. Because we hold people accountable for other types of performance, but not typically holding them accountable for raising up and lifting up and calling out the exceptional performance in others.
That's correct. That's very important, Joel. And because, at the end of the day, in my philosophical way of approaching how I want to run our organization, is that, at the end of the day, culture is not just important. Culture is everything. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a culture of accountability, responsibility, but also a culture of recognition and rewarding people for jobs well done, no matter how de minimis some of those jobs may seem to some folks, they're important to the ultimate outcome and perception of our organization. And so they all matter. Everybody has a purpose, and you've got to be able to acknowledge and celebrate. And that's what we try to do here in our culture.
That's awesome. Well, and it shows, at least from my view, through somebody in your organization, into the organization. I want to shift gears for just a second. I've heard you talk about this before, and I know some of the strongest influences in your early years were mentors in your life. Could you just share a little bit about your early years and some of the importance of some of those mentors or those leaders that poured into you or sort of led the way for you or helped pave the right path for you as a leader?
Certainly. And, one of the things that I love about sports is coaches. And so, my father passed away when I was 9, unfortunately. And so the real drivers and folks of discipline in my life seem to always be either my teachers at school, male and female, but then particularly my coaches on my baseball team, in particular, my high school football teams, and who those folks, fortunately for me, took a real interest in me personally, and then just helped keep me on track, helped keep me focused, helped keep me disciplined, helped keep me from making excuses about why I would wander off. Yeah. And so that's why I love sports, is what it teaches you in terms of not being selfish, being on time management, commitment, being able to sacrifice, but also then those coaches, particularly those youth and high school coaches who take their time to really, as adults, try to lead young folks, and a lot of young folks like myself, who maybe didn't have 2 parents at home, and it wasn't an ideal situation. Those coaches in sports and organized sports really were the source of my mentors. Yeah. And then as I got older and moved along into my career, then, very savvy businessmen and women like Arthur Blank at the Falcons. Really, I learned a lot from him in terms of how he viewed Home Depot and the fact that everyone wearing an orange apron mattered, and they were part of the success. I really love that. So there were mentors like that, to be sure, that I really have been very blessed by, Joe.
That's cool. And I even think, as you say that, just the responsibility and the stewardship of having the gift of leadership. There's, it sounds weird. It feels like I'm going to raise it myself, but you just identified something for me. I felt this sense of like, so I volunteer as a coach on a soccer team, and it's because I love the sport, but it's not part of my job. But there's something in me that goes like, hey, I have this leadership ability, and like, I don't need the responsibility to be the head coach of the team, but I've joined a team, and I support another coach as a leader. And I'm trying to use my leadership skills to build into these young men and invest in them and speak into them, truth and values and qualities that they may not be receiving other places. And it just struck me, there is a mentoring role that we take on in our organizations with our employees and the people, your senior staff, the people that report to you. It just feels though there's a responsibility and a stewardship beyond that as leaders that like you're doing today. You're spending some time volunteering, investing in other leaders to pass along the things that you've learned, not just to benefit your career and your organization, but to benefit, to sort of spill over into people around you. And I think that's a powerful thing.
And I think that's very important. Like you, when I was a youth baseball coach in Roswell, for my son's team, I didn't want to be the head coach. I wanted to be the third base coach. I wanted to come out and hit infield, hit to the outfield, talk about base running, talk about sportsmanship, and so the opportunity, the fundamentals, the opportunity, and really the obligation to pay it forward by spending time and volunteering is really important. And it was good for me because I knew that's where I had a lot of my inspiration, because you don't know all the details of some of the things that are happening in the lives of these young folks that you're able to coach. And so it's important to put yourself out there. And then in my position here, in all of the places where I've been the leader, the head of the organization, or the head of a unit, the thought of succession planning is vitally important. In the thought of providing folks coming up an opportunity for continuing education, to go outside to do volunteer work, to go and take a class where you can get a certificate in something else that you're interested in, yet brings value back to your home organization and to you as an individual. That's important stuff for a leader to really commit to as well, in my opinion. And we try to do a lot of that here.
That's great. So I want to finish with this. We don't know each other that well, but I know that you and Buffy are people of faith. And I'm just curious if you could share with us. I'm a pastor, we are a church. I'm just interested, what role has faith played in your life as a leader? Not maybe as a husband too, and as a father, but as a leader, like what role does faith play in your leadership role?
Well, it just keeps you grounded. It keeps you hopeful. It keeps you humble. It keeps you in the mind frame that you are here to hopefully provide impactful service, that it's not all about you. It's not all about me, in other words. And it just balance, and particularly in the chaos, in some of the times we're going through now. I can't profess to be a practitioner in the terms of going to church every week, and maybe not the more traditional route, but certainly to have a faith and have a connection and a chance to understand that we are blessed by a higher being who is looking out for us, and very much so making sure that we are humble and of the servant mind frame. That's been good for us. Buffy and I, thankfully, we've been blessed with a lot of things, a lot of opportunities, a lot of capability and capacity to share and give back. And so that is driven by faith and knowing that, that we've got folks looking after us on high.
That's awesome. Well, I just want you to know, just as we close, like, that's one of the things, of all the things you've accomplished and all the things you've done, the thing I've been most impressed with as I've talked with you, as I've talked with George, as I've talked with Matt, as I've witnessed your life is you have been blessed in an extraordinary way, but you've used that blessing to bless others. And you've done it in a lot of ways, a lot of generous ways, from investing in other leaders to what you're doing today to, honestly, Matt Hill has a job because you invested your own money in the tennis program there at ASU. And so there's just that's extraordinary. Not everybody does that. And I don't know if you recognize that, but that's not common. There's a lot of people who receive blessing as this is for me, this is mine. And to see you in turn be a blessing to other people as you've been to us today, because of the way you've been blessed, is really inspiring and compelling to me as a leader. And so thank you for that impact in my life.
Well, thank you, Joel. It's my pleasure and my duty to do what we can to advance and help others, because as they say, Lord knows I've been the beneficiary of so much goodness and so much passion and compassion from others about my own situation that I'm delighted and honored to have joined you.
Yeah, well, cool. Well, listen, I know you passed on the question earlier, but I hope to see you at a college football game this fall.
Hey, man. ASU. Hey, fall. Let's say fall can go all the way through into November, into December. That's still fall.
That's still fall.
I hope to be able to see you there.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Thanks again for being with us today, and God bless you.
My pleasure. Bless you. Bye-bye.